one of the things that I think is critically important when we're thinking about issues of diversity and inclusion, you can hardly have a conversation about it without talking about courage. For many people, this topic requires courage. And when we're talking about courage, what's necessary for you to move forward in spite of your fear is understanding clearly what your purpose is. So, what do I value? What's important to me? What will I like never bend on? And usually, those things are doing the right thing, ethics and integrity, my relationships, my family, maybe being happy. And so if you can start there and find out what's critically important to you, then that's kind of a guide for where you'll go. And when you think about conversations every day, there's some amazing tools in that space. Crucial Conversations has been on the map for 20 years. Tools for talking when the stakes are high. And when I'm different from you, the stakes are high because we have a history in this country of things not going so well. When we're on different sides of the aisle, when we're from different communities, different socioeconomic backgrounds, and we know we have a history where things sometimes don't go well. And so I say focus first on trust. How do I build trust with others? Let's maybe just see how we might be the same around issues like communication and conflict and decision making, and let's start there because the mind tends to go with, okay, gosh, let's talk about how we're different and like how we stand out. And I don't want you to lose uniquely who you are, but that's not usually where we should start. Let's start first where we're alike and build a trusting relationship. Then we can make that next step towards conflict and healthy conversations around that and where we're different. So I say foundation of trust, and that's like Patrick Lencioni, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team 101. So trust first, where we alike, then let's move to the harder conversations. Let's have conflict around where we might be different and how we can move things forward. So that's my suggestion. Yeah, it's your Ayan Levanzant in the meantime experience. And so if you've read Lively Paradox or if you watched any of my YouTube videos, I talk about that when the lid is on. So there's a lid, there's an obstacle in the way. What do I do? So first is to be committed. How can I make sure that whatever I'm doing, I'm all in? Like that's what I want to do. It's really hard to do the hard work and be the different one if it's not even something you even really want to do. And so often I find people who maybe they wanted to be teachers, or maybe they wanted to be artists, or maybe I work in banking in this capacity, but I really would love to work in another capacity. Take the leap of faith and try doing that thing that you really love first so that you can truly be committed to it. I have had a former mentor who said, you know, when you're sitting in the exit row in an airplane, they don't say, hey, it'd be really nice if you can open that door if we need you to. They're like, no, are you willing and able if we need you to open that door? And you have to say yes. That's the first step. Like really ask yourself, are you in? Because that's the grit you're going to need to get up every day and to be able to do this hard work if a lid is on. And then secondly, just own that there are going to be obstacles. So often I'll run into people who are underrepresented minorities, and it's not like in the traditional sense. I mean, wherever you are in the minority, because at any point, any one of us can be in the minority, and they're just like, it's almost like they expect that there won't be obstacles. And I say flip that paradigm. Know that there will be obstacles, and then put together your strategy. I call it your grit strategy for how, when I'm going to run into an obstacle, what else am I going to try? How am I going to use people in my support network to help me navigate, to get around? Because resilience, the ability to get back up when you run into obstacles, is critically important in the meantime. Like really, like you cannot be successful if you don't have that. And then the last thing I will say is know that you have to practice your skill, or you many people have heard me say prowess. So while right now there might be a lid, there might be obstacles, you have to do exactly what you can in that situation, because when the opportunity presents itself, you don't want to be the one who hasn't been ready, getting ready, because now what? And I can't tell you how many times people get that luck. They get their chance, and then crap, I didn't have my resume ready, or crap, I hadn't been working on my voice, or crap. And it's like, no, you need to spend the 10,000 hours and doing the work even in the meantime, so that when the opportunity comes, you're ready. I talk about Jesse Owens, the Olympic athlete. And Jesse Owens wouldn't have been able to run in the Olympic races just purely because he was black. But that didn't mean he didn't practice every day. That didn't mean he didn't race against horses when he didn't have people fast enough to run against. So that when the opportunity presented itself and he had a coach that was willing to take him to the Olympic Games, he was ready. So always be working on your craft and build your support networks and get other people to help you navigate those mines where you can. And then there's not enough I can say about just being fully in and committed and engaged. One thing that's been amazing in this incredible time right now in American history is that we have started to see up close and personal through the media that there are some undercurrents of things we thought we had gotten beyond. And so while I used to have to say, hey, we're not beyond race and gender, but diversity means lots of different things. I think right now the climate is showing us that we aren't beyond race and gender, that we still have some work to do there. But there's a woman named Dr. Erin Reeves. She wrote a book called The Next IQ. And this was the first place that I saw an exercise like this. And she throws up these dichotomies on the screen. Thin and heavy, rich and poor, educated, uneducated, married, single, religious, atheist, and says, which group's more powerful? And so I adopted that exercise at the beginning of my keynotes and at the beginning of my training sessions, because you can ask hundreds of people, you've seen it, like hundreds of people in the room, and go, which group is more powerful, children or adults? And the entire audience is going to say, adults. You say, which group is more powerful, men or women? And the whole audience is going to say, men. And that doesn't make us bad people. It makes us realists. It makes us say that in the short term, the social power structures that we all operate within and we all subscribe to in many ways exist. Poor people are not as powerful as rich people. And for that reason, we don't need like affinity groups. We don't need support groups for rich Americans. We have those groups. We already get together. The world is revolving around us. People cater to us. So we don't need a special group to build camaraderie, to help cheer us on when our commitment fails, that they help us. I don't need that. We don't need a group for thin people. We don't need that. If I work in education, I don't need a woman's group. It's all the people who work in education, 80% of them are women. So we don't need a women's group in that specific situation. But when people are underrepresented in wherever they work, we have to acknowledge that they don't have the power, that the social norms are geared towards the people where there's more of them. And that's not bad. We just have to acknowledge that it is, because if we acknowledge that it is, we can do two things. One, understand, be understanding, and then two, be compassionate, meaning that we're motivated to help. We cannot fix something that we deny exists. And so if I deny social power structures exist, I can ask this question 100 years from now, which group is more powerful, women or men? And the answer will still be men. And if we want to ever see some equity for our daughters, our wives, our sisters, because we all can contribute, then we have to at some point say, we recognize there's a problem, that there's some inequity, and we want to make this better, and everyone has this ability to contribute and help. We start with saying, yeah, I can look this in the face and say, yes, women are treated differently than men across the globe, and I am going to do what I can in my small little corner of the world to impact that. Yeah, so I tell people that diversity and inclusion is the reason people call me, but my passion is around leadership and accountability. That's my favorite things to talk about. And so if you ever want to know more about my leadership philosophy and my philosophy around team and change, you can find me at www.livelyparadox.com. You can also follow my YouTube channel, Lively Paradox. You can follow us on social media. So on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, it's at Lively Paradox. And sometimes people ask, like, why do you name your company Lively Paradox? So I grew up in an urban environment, and I'm everything that an urban child in education is. And at the same time, I was incredibly gifted and talented in science and math. My parents weren't incredibly poor necessarily. And so there was this dichotomy where I loved Albert Camus. And at the end of the day, I might have been in an environment where there might have been a shootout. So at the same time, there are these two things that seem completely contradictory, but all in the same person. And so when people ask me to come and talk about leadership, I'm honest yet kind. I push yet I understand. I'm funny, but I'll hit you with a little bit of real serious content. And so there's this constant just kind of back and forth all there together. And I will absolutely say things that on the surface seem self-contradictory. But when you sit and think about it for a little bit, you go, oh yeah, I guess that's kind of true. And that's the definition of a paradox. And if you want to know more about me or any of that, my books are also available on Amazon, both of them. And you can find them by looking for Nicole D. Price, and they'll be right there at the top. The first title was self-published, called Lively Paradox, an authentic perspective on issues of diversity and inclusion. And the second one was Cultivating Culture, and it was published by Red Letter Publishing, and it's an anthology with several other authors and is specifically around my leadership message. And then I've got another book coming out, and it's not ready yet, and I don't know if I can say this on Credit Union film, but the title is The Wholly Educated MFers. And it's a book about purpose and passion and prowess and fully living whatever that thing is that people go, well, I don't like that about you. That's your ability and that's your talent, and that's probably the wonderful, crazy little thing you were supposed to bring to the world. So that'll be coming out in 2017.